Hi everybody, it's Margaret here with 60 and Me. Thank you so much for being here today. I've got a really exciting video for you today. It's a topic that I absolutely love myself. It's just so interesting, and I love knitting, and inspired by an article by one of our bloggers, Liza Dunkel, who is a friend of mine and who wrote this article saying it helps her feel cool, chic, fun, and active. And she's all those things regardless of knitting. She's an amazing woman, but this article is so fun. And I'm going to share some of my knitting ideas and wools and things with you. But if you check out the article, you will get such an inspiration from her. Now, of course, knitting used to be considered, just for old, lonely ladies sitting on the porch. Classic stereotype, but it's not. And of course, for me as a girl, my mom used to knit all our sweaters. It was a very functional thing, but now knitting has gone mainstream. It's really hip. You cruise Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, Pinterest that I mentioned. Any of those, you're going to find amazing ideas for projects, for wools. And not only are there the mainstream wools that you can get in just your normal shops, but a lot of like knitwear designers and special, home weavers are making their own yarns, and they're incredible. And I've got some examples to show you, things that I've ordered on Etsy that I absolutely love. But you don't have to do fancy yarn. You can just do beautiful things that you can get anywhere. So she talks about this site called Ravelry. I've never heard of it, but I went and checked it out, and it's a really, really cool knitting site. You sign up, and then you can access all the tutorials and activities, connections. It's like a community of knitters. It's very, very cool. And so I'm so happy, Lisa, that you introduced me to that. And she also talks about cult superstars, knitting superstars, celebrity superstars like Stephen West, Boyland Knitworks, Andrea Mowry. And then there's indie yarn dyers that create these yarns that are so incredibly interesting, multiple thicknesses and colors. And I've just got some here that I'm going to show you in a minute. But she says, yummy yarns of alpaca, merino, silk, yak, speckles, fades. It's just another world. Totally beautiful. And for example, there's a couple that I just picked up. One I picked up at on Etsy. This is so strange because I got this package from a lady. Her name is Bria. She's an artisanal. She makes yarns, and her company is called Breadiculous, Breadiculous. I can say, I'll put it in the section below. But she makes these yarns that are unbelievable. Now, when I got this yarn, can you see these colors? I got this yarn, and it was in a skein, and I couldn't find the end. I sat there for like 3 hours. No, kidding, like 3 minutes, which is about all I could wait. And I couldn't find where the end was. So I just had to make the best of it. And I managed to get, I think enough to make my little scarf. But this is such beautiful yarn, multiple colors. It's lovely. And what I liked most of all was this little card that came with it, which said, "Thank you for supporting my small business." And I love that. And if there's anything that's come out of this pandemic, it's being able to support small businesses. And so I'm very happy, Bria, to support her. But I'm sure Lisa's got all kinds of suggestions. Another example is this one here that I picked up just at a local shop. And it's called merino. It's merino wool. It's 120 superwash. It's just like, it's going to make a really cool little scarf. And it's just multiple colors. I love rainbow colors. I should probably take it out so you could see it. Isn't that pretty? I love it. It's really cool. This was quite inexpensive. This one here was double the price, but I love them both for the same reason. They're colorful and they're going to be fun to knit. I've also got some plain colors, like I've got this beautiful pink that I'm just going to knit something. I was thinking about doing like a weave together with these, which, putting them side by side. I might do that. And then in terms of indie yarn makers, I picked this up, this wool. I don't know if you can see the texture and the color, but I picked it up at a market. And it was a woman actually weaving or doing the yarn while she was sitting there at the market. And it's all different. It's not so much as I like, but you can see it's like different textures and thicknesses of wool. I really love this color, not so much for now, but for the winter months maybe. But that I love. And so those are just a few that I love, but it's just astounding. The thing that she talks about being like active and connected with knitting, I think is important. So let's leave my wool aside there for a sec. But knitting, she says, is not for sitting around at home. You have to go out on buses, on cruises, on when you can, of course, trains. When you go to the doctor's office, when you go to a shop, then you've got time. You're waiting for something. Just take your knitting with you. It's really fun. And of course, she likes to knit while she's watching the TV because she can actually do that. I have to watch my knitting because I don't know how to knit. My mom could knit like this. She was just knitting away, watching anything. But I have to watch. But she watches TV everywhere you go. And it's certainly not for loners. Knitting is, knitting was something similar to this from Lion Brand. It was, called it Mandala, I think was the line. I really love their Mandala line. And I was sitting on a bus once and I think I got like 3 people coming up to me. Oh my gosh, what are you knitting? I was like, oh, a scarf, and in German, I was trying to figure out what to say, but it was like, oh, it's a scarf. And they was, oh, so beautiful, so good. And it's not a solitary activity. You are going to draw people to you like a magnet. It's just great. And then you can share stories. In fact, somebody said to me, I was on the bus that same trip, and she said, oh, you're using the Moroccan technique. And I went, I'm using the Moroccan technique? What is that? And she said, no. And I don't know if it was Moroccan or if it was something else, but it was like some technique. And I was like, I'm not using any technique. I'm just like learning what my mom taught me and what I remember. So anyway, she says, Lisa moved to Chicago, I mentioned. And she started a meetup group and she called it Stitch and Bitch, which I think is awesome. And she said she got like 50 people, was it? I mean, a lot of people that signed up for it. And I've done meetups before, so you only get like 10 maybe in a group, but they would sit and chat. I guess bitch and stitch, and they would knit, and they have tea and cookies, and people would bring snacks, and it was just like a really cool idea. Now we can't do it now. I know it's tough, but we can, do virtual knitting groups. We can just plan for the next few months when we can do things together. We get a vaccine group, people have been vaccinated, you feel comfortable sitting together. But anyway, it's not for loners. It's an easy way, Lisa says, to meet people. Sitting just in public. Knitters are like hat wearers. I think I'm a hat wearer. And I think there's something about knitters that makes us chatty. I don't know, we just like to create. We like to create stuff out of nothing. It's just our way. So anyway, Lisa mentions the people she's met on airplanes and buses, and it's great. It's just a fun thing. She also talks about yarn stores. These are my favorite places. When I went on a cruise last year with Hurtigruten, we went up the Norwegian coast. Oh my gosh, Norway has the most amazing wool ever. And you go into the little towns like Kodo, or I can't think of the names, but Tromsø, places where on the journey up to Kirkenes from Bergen, and everyone would have a yarn store, and every yarn store would be like a sea of colors and beauty, and oh my gosh. But wherever you live, there's almost certainly a yarn group where you can go in and have lessons and talk to people, and they're so friendly. I went into one the other week, and this woman gave me the idea about putting 2 colors together, like putting a cashmere wool with a plain merino wool. And it was very expensive, so I decided not to do that. But it was just a chat about what you could do with wool and how it was like almost like a gateway to another planet. It was like into another world. There's also, she mentions local yarn store days where like people have yarn days where you can go and trade, and just check it out. Just type knitting in Google, knitting and then your town. You will find so much, and it will make you feel so cool. And she says cool and hip and whatever, but you feel like you're current, like you're doing something that is, it's just cool. She talks about knit-alongs too. Like apparently there's lots of designers, like wool designers. Didn't even know there was such a thing, that wool designers who have, they launch a new wool and they say, okay, everybody all around the world, we want 100 people that are going to knit the same thing in the same wool. And they do these knit-a-thons. And she says she's connected with top knitters all around the world and asks them questions. And I'm not nearly that serious about it, but Lisa is really into knitting, truly. She talks about travel knitting, and she's right. She talks about the Shetland Island yarn or wool week. Scotland has some great yarns as well. It's really, really cool. Vogue Knitting has conventions. You can go to a convention for knitters. And some apparently on Hurtigruten. I didn't realize this, but apparently Hurtigruten, you can get excursions with knitting themes. It's probably they take a cruise and then a group of people get together on the cruise. And that's where I do a lot of my knitting. Well, I did a lot of my knitting. But anyway, Chic, sensual, beautiful, just, you know, there's so much beauty. I mentioned Lion Brand, which is a great place to go. She talks about Stephen and Penelope in Amsterdam and La Bien Amie in Paris. I have to check these out. And of course, knitting is artistic, right? I was going to show you, where did I put my scarf? Just a second. Oh, here it is. It's behind me. I knew I brought it out to show you. This is one that I made. Lisa, this is inspired by you. Can you see this? Oh, the colors are so awesome. I love this. I only got to wear this like about 3 times this winter because it was so thick. It's like Arctic weather coat, but or scarf. But yeah, and I just love the colors. So that's one of my knitting adventures. I love it. So anyway, hope that you get some inspiration from this. You know, it's exploding with color and pattern, design, texture. This is the time to really, really enjoy knitting. It's just that time of life. It's beautiful. You can give your stuff to charity. There's all kinds of charitable things you can do. And I think I have to close with just saying mental health. It makes you feel good. So Lisa, thank you so much for writing this article. I had so much fun reading and enjoying telling the story of the knitting world that you are part of. And thank you for sharing with our community. If you are a knitter, share some of your stories. Share some of the things you've knitted, what you've done with your knitting passion, and let's just enjoy this together. Okay, everybody, have a fabulous day knitting or whatever you're going to do. I look forward to your comments and joining in the conversation. And just take good care of yourselves. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye for now.